Good, it's time now for a check of the top business news stories. Kate Moody is here. Hi there, Kate.
Hi, Tom.
Some big changes at some major international institutions. I'm talking about the IMF and the World Bank.
Absolutely. We've seen Kristalina Georgieva officially beginning work as the new managing director of the International Monetary Fund. The Bulgarian economist, who has a background at both the World Bank and European Commission, is the first from an emerging market to hold that post. She replaces Christine Lagarde, who will take the helm of the European Central Bank next month. The IMF weighs in on issues including international trade, inequality, climate change and debt. Georgieva said she would focus on building consensus between both leading and emerging economies. Take a listen.
Most immediate challenge is for us in the fund to work on identifying more specifically risks for individual member states, especially those countries that are already faced with difficulties, and making sure that they handle these risks well.
Well, Georgieva most recently served as the CEO of the World Bank Group. For the past month, that role has been filled by Axel van Trotsenburg, who today has been confirmed as the Managing Director of Operations. That's essentially the right-hand man to President David Malpass. And he joins us now from the World Bank in Washington. Thanks for joining us on France 24, and congratulations on your appointment. What's the most pressing concern now for the World Bank?
The most pressing concern for the World Bank is to continue its mission, namely to help countries reduce poverty and boosting shared prosperity. We have made great progress in many parts in the world in reducing poverty, but poverty remains a big challenge, particularly in the low-income countries. We have to focus on this. Equally, we have to focus on middle-income countries in their efforts to create also more jobs and embrace the still many development challenges. That can be in infrastructure, it can be in improving education, it can mean in improving health outcomes. The bank is there as a long-term development partner, and that will continue. And my job is working with my team to advance this development dialogue, and the dialogue is going to be implemented through an ambitious financial support program in the order of $50 billion per year, as well as technical assistance and analytical services.
The outlook for the global economy as a whole is fairly gloomy by most measures, including the World Bank's latest predictions.
You're correct. Unfortunately, the outlook is less favorable even compared to our last forecast, namely about 2.6% annual growth for the world economy. That's about 0.3% less than that we initially projected earlier this year. This is a concern. We therefore would like to support countries in their efforts to deal with these challenges, and that can be into short-term challenges in dealing with macroeconomic support programs, but it is also looking very much at the structural reforms as well as the social programs. The social programs will be important because many people are going to be affected by this slowdown.
Now, there's been a lot of focus on global trade tensions, notably the American disputes with China and the European Union. Where do emerging economies stand in all that upheaval?
Well, I think for the emerging market, the way forward is clear. They would like to take advantage of the possibilities are provided by free trade. This has been one way of also boosting their economic growth prospect. Therefore, the bank has always been in favor of free trade because it provides good opportunities to grow, but also to reduce poverty in the countries affected. Therefore, we favor clearly an as open as possible trading regime, and that particularly developing countries can get as good access as possible to world markets.
In a past chapter of your career at the World Bank, you oversaw a relief program for heavily indebted countries. Government debt levels around the globe are now the highest in decades. Which economies in particular stand in the most need of debt relief, and is that really feasible?
Well, the program that I led was for the low-income countries. It was called the HIPC Debt Initiative that was implemented 25 years ago. I think there we try to solve the problem for low-income countries' debt situation, particularly in Africa, and we were successful. What we are looking at is that we are stressing now that debt in itself is not bad. It can contribute development and should be used prudently, and that means that it should be embedded in a sustainable framework within the macro. And we believe that if this is well done, including also taking care of a transparent system so that people can know what is being contracted, that's the way forward. In many of the countries that are affected by that promise, it is not immediately necessary that they will need a haircut. It is very often the combination of good economic policies as well as good debt management that one can deal with this situation.
Axel van Trotsenburg, the new Managing Director of Operations at the World Bank. Thanks for joining us on France 24.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
A top executive at Credit Suisse has resigned after it emerged that he ordered surveillance of a former colleague who left the bank in July. Adding a sordid twist to the affair, it now emerges that a security consultant who apparently acted as a middleman appears to have committed suicide. Luke Schrago has the story.
The matter's rocked Switzerland's normally sober banking circles over the last 2 weeks, and now the man who ordered surveillance on former senior Credit Suisse manager Iqbal Khan has resigned, as bosses at the country's second-largest bank move to distance themselves from events.
The Credit Suisse chief operating officer, acting alone, decided to initiate the observation of Mr. Khan. There is no evidence to suggest that he had discussed the decision with the chief executive officer, any member of the executive board, the chairman, or indeed myself as chairman of the Group Audit Committee.
Now, former COO Pierre-Olivier Bouet had felt that Khan might try to poach Credit Suisse clients after he left the firm in July for arch-rival UBS. Bouet ordered surveillance on the well-known banker at the end of August after UBS announced his hiring. However, Khan became aware he was being followed and confronted investigators in the street on September 17th as the matter became embarrassingly public. Credit Suisse then launched an internal investigation that found not only had Bouet acted alone, but that Khan had never attempted to poach either clients or personnel. Further complicating the affair was news that a middleman between Credit Suisse and the security firm who carried out the surveillance last week committed suicide. And while they've opened a criminal investigation, Swiss prosecutors aren't currently treating the death as suspicious.
All right, Credit Suisse clearly trying to turn the page on this saga, Tom, but lots of unanswered questions still.
Yeah, an extraordinary story by the sounds of things. Thank you very much indeed, Kate Moody there with that and the rest of the day's business news. I'll be back at 9:30. That's in a couple of minutes. Stay tuned.